Well, welcome everybody, and I think we have some really very interesting questions. Some of them that we haven't even delved into a little bit. To Father Trujillo, you want to outline them for us?
Well, Father Ken, we have today a question about the Holy Roman Empire.
And was there a Caesar?
That's a question to ask. Who ran the place, and for how long? Another question we have today: what are the Catholic Ten Commandments?
Are there difference between Catholic and Protestant?
Just like the Bible? Let's look. And finally, the question that's on everyone's minds: do animals go to heaven?
Only what the movie says, all dogs go to heaven, or is that true or false? But wait,
I'm a cat owner, so I'm not going to answer.
Wait to find out, and stay
tuned.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Web of Faith 2.1.5. My name is Father Kenneth Briganti, and I am joined by my co-host,
Father John Trujillo, Diocese of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and Director of Pastoral Formation at Mount St. Mary's Seminary in Emmitsburg, Maryland.
And this is our quarantine edition based on our Web of Faith 2.0 that airs on EWTN on Saturdays, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the way this operates is that you send in the questions, and we got Father Trujillo a whole bunch of new questions for us to answer. So hopefully
I'm excited.
It's one of your questions, and we're answering them now. So, well, let's go right on to it. Dear Father John, I appreciate how you always put things in historical perspective. I think we lack a sense of history in this country. My question is, what was the Holy Roman Empire? Adam from Linden.
Well, that's a good question. The Holy Roman Empire was founded in the 9th century, and the first Holy Roman Emperor was Charlemagne. Charles the Great, also known as Carolus Magnus in Latin, and Karl der Großer in German. Charlemagne is his French name. And
which also means Charles the Great.
They're all the same.
Charlemagne, right.
Now,
was this one the greengrocer? I'm sorry? You said Charles the Grocer?
No, Karl der Großer.
Oh, der Großer.
Der Großer, because gross in German means the great.
Okay.
So Charles the Great.
All right. See, Father Trujillo is also a linguist, so good
I'm
question.
I'm not a polyglot, but I could throw that in there all over the place.
All right.
So Charles, he was the son of Pepin, and Charles organized. Him and his brother were at odds, and the Gauls, who had become part of the Roman Empire, were vying for power. And the Roman Empire, as you know, fell in the 5th century. And after the last Roman emperor in the West died, then sort of the Roman Empire, per se, moved to the East. And because Constantine, who lived in the 4th century, had established the capital in Byzantium, which then later became Constantinople, named after himself. And then when the Turks got it, they changed it to Istanbul. So the empire, in a sense, moved to the east. And then in the west, the only thing that was a power that was viable there was the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, because that middle section of Italy was known as the Papal States. But the Pope was constantly being invaded in the Papal States, both from the north and the south. And the Germans were fighting among the Gauls, and the other barbarians were moving in. So at one point, it was Christmas Day in the year 800 AD, Pope Leo crowns Charlemagne Holy Roman Emperor. And that's the first time that terminology was used, Holy Roman Emperor and Holy Roman Empire. And that was a way of baptizing, in a sense, the Roman Empire, even though Constantine converted on his deathbed, and then subsequent Roman emperors did embrace the Christian faith. But this is the first time that the Catholic Christianity becomes the normative and official religion all over the Western world. And by him declaring that Charlemagne was the Holy Roman Emperor, and that he was crowned by the Pope. The Pope put the crown on his head, unlike when Napoleon grabbed it from the Pope's arms and stuck it on his own head there. This was a sign that the authority comes from God and then is sanctioned and recognized by the ecclesiastical authorities. Unfortunately, it didn't live that long.
Before you go on, the capital at the time for the Holy Roman Empire was not Rome, though.
No. The seat of power was in Germany, in Aachen, and I think that's where Charlemagne is buried to this day.
And Father was using different terms like Gaul, that's where we get present-day France. Franks, that's where we get present-day Germany. And so those are the terms that were used at the time. And this was before nationalism or rise of countries that we know today.
And this was the first attempt to unify all of Europe after it. Again, the Roman Empire, the ancient Roman Empire, unified in one sense by military force all of Western Europe. And then when the barbarians came and there was disarray, this was an attempt to bring back all of Europe under what we called Christendom. And with one Holy Roman Emperor, one Pope in Rome, that would establish some peace. And it did work for a while. And though you did have small principalities, you still had, like the King of England still existed, the King of France still existed, but the Holy Roman Emperor outweighed them in terms of prestige. Now, it didn't always mean that he got his will imposed upon, but this lasted all the way up into the 1800s. Okay, the Holy Roman Empire then later became part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and that existed up until the end of World War I, when it was dissolved as a consequence.
But its zenith, you would say, would be under Pope Innocent III, right? The zenith of its power, the Holy Roman, because the church was strong at that time.
Yes,
and as you mentioned, all Christendom was Catholic then, so there was no division at that time.
In fact, the Holy Roman Emperor in waiting was a ward of Pope Innocent III. This was Frederick II, I believe, and he was a young lad, and his father was either dead or was out of the picture, and so the Pope took him under his wings, thinking that he could, guide and mold him into a good leader. But unfortunately, once Frederick became the Holy Roman Emperor, he did what he wanted, and he let
as kings will do
very often.
And but part of the destruction of the Holy Roman Empire was rise of nationalism, rise of the middle class and the merchant class, the rise of course, the divisions because of Protestantism, and the political factions had to played with that. The fact that the Pope was in exile for almost 70 years in Avignon, which created a void in the power. It was under the French kings that they had. They were sort of they weren't really kidnapped, but they were. The way the cardinals...
Well, Rome had become a cesspool.
But the way the French cardinals were able to elect popes, they pretty much stayed in Avignon. So there was a lot of problems after Innocent III that sort of creeped in, which would be the fissures of the Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire. And so Protestantism would be one, and the rise of nationalism. So like in 1870 with unification of Italy, the papal states left and many of the little city-states that were there, and the Austrian-Hungarian Empire used to go all the way to Milan. So with that, they were pushed back. And then, of course, as you mentioned, with the World War I, they were pushed back out of Italy altogether because, and then even part of Austria, that's German-speaking, which we call Alto Adige in Italian, or Sud Tyrol in German, became part of Italy. And to this day, that section of Italy speaks German first and Italian second. Yeah. So with that, and the final destruction of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, which used to encompass also Krakow and Prague and many of those Central European countries, and then really came to an end, though, at that point.
Yes, and a pivotal point was when Martin Luther broke away from Rome and established the Lutheran Church and established, for all practical purposes, Protestantism. The way that he achieved such success in his political intrigue was that if you could separate yourself from the Pope in Rome for religious matters, then the barons and the dukes and the lords, especially in Germany, could separate themselves from the Holy Roman Emperor because if the Holy Roman Emperor is crowned by the Pope, and all of a sudden now you're no longer Catholic, you're Lutheran, then you don't care who the Roman Emperor is, and therefore that instigated things as well as the economic and the religious issues. So all this contributed, but one particular person other than Charlemagne, I think of great note, was Maria Theresa. She was one of the last of the great Holy Roman empresses, and
in the 18th century.
Her influence was vast because she made sure that a lot of her children married well, and
which means the heads of the crowns of Europe,
almost all of Europe, in
Catholic
some way,
Europe,
were connected to Maria Theresa, and even some Protestant relatives were in the mix as well. Because,
in fact, Maria Antoinette was
yes,
from the Habsburgs that married Louis XVI.
Even with the Russians, I mean, it was so vast. She had like 18 children at one point.
Well, Russia was kind of different because they were Orthodox, so sometimes they married Protestants who converted to Orthodox, and sometimes they married Catholics who also converted to Orthodox. So that was not always a game.
The intrigue was just amazing,
right.
And I think there was an attempt when the Soviet Union fell apart of trying to resurrect the Holy Roman Empire. Not necessarily politically, because everybody wants their, national identity, but just like you had the common market, you had the European Union. There was talk and some movement, but it just smacked too much of religion for the non-believers, which I don't think was a bad thing. When you had the Holy Roman Empire, they did not forbid, in a strict sense, other beliefs, but Catholicism was the state religion, so it had pride of place. That's why there was, all the schools were run by the church,
right,
as well as the hospitals
and other social institutions. Well, Adam, we hope that was suffice to your answer, and you learned a little history there. And you are right; we don't have a good perspective on history, as you could see. We went all the way up to World War I. Which was really the deciding factor of the conclusion of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. So,
and we just celebrated Italian Republic Day the other day.
Oh, there you go.
It was after World War II, and they voted out the monarchy and in the Republic. A little esoterica for you.
There you go.
Okay,
all right.
Got one for you now.
Yes, okay.
Dear Father Briganti, I really enjoy the books you and Father Trigilio co-wrote. Some I just purchased from EWTN book catalog. My question is, what are the Catholic 10 Commandments? And that's from Cassandra in Colt's Neck.
Well, the Catholic 10 Commandments and Protestant 10 Commandments are the same, really. It's just the order or the numbering, and that comes from the different translations, the Hebrew or the Septuagint translations. But and so you'll see a little bit of the numerical differences in that. But we all believe in the same 10 Commandments. The Catholics combine certain ones together, and that's how we get the numerical number of that. And the Protestants have a little bit of a different translations. But iron it all out, it's all 10 Commandments, and it's all similar in that way. Now, Cassandra, I would have to say one of the good things would be what every parish should have in there, and it's called a confession primer. And what this confession primer does, it goes through the 10 Commandments, as we know, and its refinements. Because the thing is, a lot of people will say, "Oh, Father, I don't really commit any sin. I'm a good person and all that." Well, that might be true, but there are sins of omission and commission. Omission are things that I should be doing, but I'm not doing. And sins of commission is things that I'm doing that I shouldn't be doing. So the 10 Commandments in any way or form the basic of a confessional guide, or what we call an examination of conscience. And this is one of that we use in our parish, and it's written by Father Fred Miller from Immaculate Conception Seminary.
Father Miller
At Seton Hall. And I like it because it's good for adults. And also, in the back there is your act of contrition, because a lot of people get a little bit nervous and forget their act of contrition. So if your parish doesn't have it, you should probably ask your pastor to get them. This one here is from the St. Martin de Porres Lay Dominicans in New Hope, Kentucky. You can get them online. I always keep a whole stack of them, and especially when we have a penance service in Advent and Lent, I order more of them. So people have them ready on and say, hey, yes, you may not have the language, but we do. We can give it to you. And maybe you're not aware of certain things. And why do you want to be aware? Because you want to grow in your faith. So I would say the similarities and differences between the Protestant Catholics is more in the numbering and combining.
It's interesting when you do a little research on which we do in our book, The Catholicism for Dummies, and also in this book here, the source book, because Catholics and Lutherans have the same numbering system, because Martin Luther was an Augustinian monk, and it was St. Augustine who actually ascribed the particular numbers to the commandments. When you look in the Old Testament, there's no number, okay? It doesn't say this is the first commandment, the second commandment. They list them, okay, as commandments, but how you ascribe what's number one, then when you come number two, because between Exodus and Deuteronomy, there's a little change in verbiage. So the Catholics and the Lutherans count the first commandment, I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt have strange gods before me. The Swiss Reformed, John Calvin and other Protestants, they then count another one, no graven images, which is implied in the first commandment. So Catholics and Lutherans, first commandment, no strange gods. The second one, don't take the Lord's name in vain. Third, keep holy the Sabbath day. Fourth, honor thy father and mother. In the Swiss Reformed and Protestant numbering system, I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt have strange gods. And then they, for number two, count no graven images, and then no blasphemy, the Lord's day, and then honor thy father and mother is number 5. So when you say, here's where it gets interesting. If I remember when I was teaching RCIA and hearing confessions, and some Protestant, he was Methodist or something, and when he went to confession, he got a little confused, and he was saying, he broke the 5th commandment, and 5th commandment is thou shalt not kill. Well, 5th commandment in the Swiss Reformed means that you dishonor your father and mother. Big difference, okay, whether you murdered someone or you disobeyed your mom and dad. But this
unless that's how he did it.
Maybe. But this is why interesting.
And we've seen cases of that too.
Publicly, when they display the 10 Commandments, Catholics and Lutherans are not opposed to displaying the 10 Commandments, but we do differ from the Swiss Reformed and other Protestants on the numbering. So I always would say, don't put the numbers there, and then you would appeal to all Christians.
Right.
But no one ever listens to me.
Also, you would have to say that in the 10 Commandments too, that it is our block that we use for our what we call examination of conscience. So that's why a little prayer pamphlet of this is so important. And a daily examen is very good because it gives you the language you need to go to confession. Because, like I said, a lot of people say, what sin do I commit? Well, because they probably don't have the language behind it.
Yes.
The only sinless person I know was the Blessed Virgin Mary.
That was it.
And, and that's why she assumed into heaven. So all of us need the confession, and all of us need to know. Now, the 1 through 3 in the commandments were, of course, revealed directly, to God from us. Now, the other commandments, 4 through 10, is something that God written in our hearts called the natural moral law. So we have a natural intuition not to kill, that it's wrong, or not to steal, which is wrong, or tell lies. It's part of being of human nature. So that's why we, when we appeal to that abortion is wrong, it's not just a church commandment or something. It's rather, it's against the natural moral law that God
as well as the commandments.
As well as the commandments.
God just gave it a little punch. Because remember, Moses killed an Egyptian before God gave him the 10 Commandments. And, if he would have had a good lawyer, could he have said to God, well, I'm not guilty of murder because you didn't tell me thou shalt not murder yet? No, because as Father Ken said, those last 7 commandments in the Catholic Lutheran classification there, he knew that intuitively by his use of reason that murder is wrong. Now, in case there's any math majors out there, you might be saying, well, if the Swiss Reformed Church added a commandment. How do they still get 10? Because they combine 9 and 10 from our standpoint. Because we have separately, thou shalt not cover thy neighbor's wife, thou shalt not cover thy neighbor's goods. They combine those and say, thou shalt not
So
covet.
they combine two. They just combine another
They
areas.
add one and then they combine
Yes,
two.
there
So
we
it still
go.
comes out to 10.
Right. But it covers all of them. We both have the same
Yeah, so
commandments,
there's
just the different
no new
numerology.
ones.
Right. Well, thank you for that question. And now we have one for you.
Okay.
And I think there was a movie on this question,
Uh-oh.
but we'll go there in a second. Dear Father, I cannot believe how much I've learned over the past few months by watching Web of Faith. Thank you so much for all you do. My question is, do animals go to heaven? Brittany from Reddington. The movie is...
All dogs go to heaven.
There you go. And he's a
Yeah.
cat lover.
Yeah, I didn't
It doesn't
watch
say
that
anything
movie.
about cats going.
I
So.
didn't watch that movie.
But wait a minute. But in all fairness, Brittany, Father's going to explain about animals in general.
Yes. And I am a cat owner, so there's a disclaimer here. Okay. First of all, we have to distinguish, and St. Thomas Aquinas gave this beautiful axiom: never deny, seldom affirm, always distinguish. Now, in terms of metaphysics, which is a very fancy way of talking about how things exist in the universe, we have inanimate objects like rocks, okay, dirt, the moon, the sun. Then we have plant life, and there's what we call a plant soul, because that's a process of reproduction and nutrition and growth. So nutrition, growth, and reproduction are the three principles of life, and that's basically a plant soul. Next level is animal. Animals obviously continue what plants do. They reproduce, they have nutrition and growth, but they also have sensation. They have 5 senses that give them information to their little kitty and doggy brains there.
Pavlov's dogs, right?
Salivating all over the place, or when
Bell.
you bring something your cat doesn't like, he pushes it to the side. All right. Now, animals are distinct from human beings because human beings have what the plant life has: nutrition, growth, reproduction. They have what the animals have in terms of sense knowledge, but we also have a higher level. We have a free will and a rational intellect. So our soul is immortal. It does not die when the body dies. Animals, when they die, like when a plant dies, their soul ceases to be. Okay?
And it's in that latter part that as human beings we're created in the image and likeness of God.
Yeah, we're in God's image because of our intellect and our will. Now, angels, which are the next step above us, have no bodies, but they have an intellect and they have a will. And of course, we have God, who is the supreme being,
The
who has a
creator.
divine intellect, the divine will. Now, that being the case, I'm going to go out here on a limb here and tell you, okay, strictly speaking, animals do not go to heaven because heaven was created for human beings and for angels, okay? And we go through a test in life, and if we live a good life, just like the angels were put to the test, you and I are put to the test. Do we follow God's will or do we not? Animals don't get a moral choice. Animals do not act in a
They
moral
can't make
way.
a moral choice, right?
They act out of instinct. When's the last time you saw a dog look at himself in the mirror and say, "Oh, I got a biscuit belly. I'm going to go on a diet now"? So even though he's hungry, he
I
says
thought that was
no.
didn't Snoopy do that or
Well, some animal. I forget what it was. Or Garfield maybe it was.
Garfield, that's a cat though.
But
Okay.
see, animals have to act out of instinct. So when they're angry, they show their anger. When they're hungry, they eat. If they're hungry, they don't say, "Nah, my cholesterol's up. I gotta lay off." They cannot do that. Now, they can be affectionate and that. Now, that doesn't mean, however, even though animals do not have a right to heaven, after the resurrection, when God restores our bodies and souls together, it says in Scripture, a new heaven and a new earth. Some theologians speculate, because we're going to have our bodies back, that other things that our bodies were used to, like good food, certainly Thomas Aquinas was big on this, good food with no carbohydrates, no worry about if you're diabetic, because there'll be no bad effects of the food, lovely music. So there could be a possibility of God restoring your favorite animals or pets if you're in heaven after the resurrection. But right now, there's no way an animal or a cat or a dog or a turtle could be in heaven because they do not have an immortal soul.
But not necessarily the dog you had. It could be the fact that there could be dogs in heaven.
Could be dogs. It
right.
could
And
be
that's
your
a
original dog.
That's what they call a theological conclusion.
It's totally speculation. But I remember
And I think Pope
some
Francis
lady,
was going on that line a little
yeah,
bit.
and some lady wrote to me and Father Levis years ago, and when we said that animals don't have immortal souls, she said, well, if my dog doesn't go to heaven, I don't want to go there. Okay, lady, all right, you deny yourself eternal bliss because of Pooch. Now, I'm a pet owner, and I love my pet, but I'm not. If it's a choice between me and Octavian, guess who I'm going to make sure gets to heaven. All right?
And Father's very good to his pet. He's at the Hotel Hershey, isn't he, right now, while you're in
taken
quarantine?
well care of.
The Hotel Hershey is AKA the vet
It's where the
in
vet lives.
in Hershey. Yeah,
I
but he is
can't-
treated
I
very
can't
well.
say
Yeah.
DET in front of him. So I know a lot of people are going to be mad about that, but I'm not saying it's not possible. It's theoretical that God could do this, but animals do not have a right, and they're instinctively not created for that. But that doesn't mean that God is not. He's not constrained. In other words,
Right.
of him restoring things the way they were, but in a more perfect way, where your pet would never get sick, would never die, or like Father Ken said, they could be generic. Now, we do not believe in Plato's idea of universals. So there's not just some universal dog floating around somewhere and some cat, just like there's no universal man. We believe more what Aristotle said, that there's particulars and then we abstract a universal.
So, Brittany, my best advice to you is live a good and holy life, get to heaven, and then wait for the resurrection of the body, and you'll find out,
Yes.
like we all will.
But be good to your pets.
All right. So this is all the time we have today. And if you care to send some questions in, there will be an email address in there. I'll be happy to answer them for you. And also, please continue sending your donations into the parish. We only live and exist on that. So either PayPal or texting or electronic giving, which is a great webinar on there on our webpage. And the traditional way of envelopes also. And as we open up more masses too, and you'll be able to come in person, it will be wonderful to see you again. Know that we're looking forward to that, the priests and the sisters here in the
And
parish.
you can talk to Regina if you have any questions.
Well, yes, that's right. And then, we are looking forward to seeing again the familiar faces in the parish. So look to the schedule for that when they will be rolling those masses out. Finally, we like to thank our producer and editor, Father Matthew Marinelli, and as he edits this and brings this to you in such a wonderful way. So, Father, let's give a blessing.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
May Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen. God bless you.
Bye-bye.